Hello and welcome to ACJ TV. Today on our show, we have for you Mr. Andrew Whitehead, who's an authority on the Kashmir issue. And his book titled A Mission in Kashmir includes first-hand accounts of more than 40 people from the valley. So, sir, without further ado, let's get started. As we all know, the District Development Council elections in Jammu and Kashmir are soon approaching, and this is being hailed as the first electoral process since the abrogation of Article 37. But the polls are unusual even by Kashmir's own stormy standards. We want to know what significance do you think these elections hold for the future of Jammu and Kashmir?
Well, the councils themselves don't count for very much. So these are very local elections, and normally they wouldn't get a lot of attention. But as you say, their importance is that these are the first real electoral contests of consequence in Jammu and Kashmir since the abrogation of Article 370 and Jammu and Kashmir's loss of the status of being a state. It's now a union territory. Um, for the BJP national government, this is an attempt to demonstrate that the abrogation of 370 has significant support within Jammu and Kashmir, and things there are getting back to normal, that democracy is in place and vibrant. For the People's Alliance, which is the grouping of mainly Kashmir Valley-based parties, which contested elections in the past, and which includes the National Conference and the PDP, the big two Kashmiri parties, it's an attempt to demonstrate that they have some continuing relevance after the rug was pulled from under their feet, really, last year, and after, of course, their leaders were jailed for many months.
The seven opposition parties have come together in this alliance to defeat the BJP. And their goal is to restore Kashmir's special status back. So, sir, do you think that this alliance will be able to counter the BJP in this election?
I think the alliance will be able to counter the BJP in the Kashmir Valley. Whether it will be, if you look across Jammu and Kashmir, I'm less sure. The BJP does have a presence now in the Kashmir Valley, which it didn't do a few years ago, and it's certainly the dominant party in Jammu. And of course, I think the BJP is benefiting from the goodwill and active support of the administration, such as it is. The People's Alliance is a concoction of parties which have spent years and decades fighting each other. I mean, fighting each other politically rather than otherwise. And it brings together the People's Conference, the National Conference, the People's Democratic Party, the three main parties in the Kashmir Valley. I think the three main Kashmir-based parties there. And for them, this is a matter of simply of survival, because the abrogation of Article 370 really destroyed the credibility of those Kashmiri political parties who had argued, look, our future is with India. Let's make the most of it. Let's work for autonomy. Let's make sure our voice is heard. The abrogation of 370, which all of those parties strongly opposed, suggests that their voices are not heard. They are of no consequence. Former chief ministers were among those locked up. A sitting member of the Lok Sabha was among those locked up. The BJP locked up its former allies in the Kashmir Valley. These are not people who support violence. These are the BJP's former allies. So it was deeply wounding, and this is a last gasp initiative to show that they have some political relevance. I don't know how it's going to pan out, and I'm not quite sure what the benchmark of success is. But I think the real difficulty is I can't see any early prospect of Article 370 being reinstated. It's just not going to happen.
And we certainly learned a lot about the upcoming elections in the valley, and we are very eager to know what happens there. And following that, we'll chat with you again. And thank you so much, sir,
And
for being on our
thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on air with ACJ.